This is Pastor Dave with the Essential Truth with another brief Bible study. Today we're looking at two verses in Ephesians Chapter 2, verses 8 and 9. You know, there's a lot of people that have many different ideas and thoughts regarding salvation. What is it? What is it not? What does it mean? What doesn't it mean? What's involved in salvation? And here in the book of Ephesians Chapter 2, verses 8 and 9, it's really broken down very simply for us. Very familiar verses. It says in Ephesians 2, verse 8, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God." And verse 9, "Not of works, lest anyone should boast." So when you break these two verses down, he says, by grace you have been saved through faith. One way that I've always been able to remember the definition for the word grace is to take the word grace, G-R-A-C-E, and taking those letters and remembering God's riches at Christ's expense. And that helps you remember the definition. Some people refer to grace as unmerited favor, meaning something that we do not deserve. And that's a good way to remember it too. But he says here that by grace are you saved through faith. So it's something that we don't deserve. And what does faith mean? Well, there's different definitions of faith and different types of faith. For example, there's what we call temporal faith or temporary faith, and probably many people watching this video have exercised that kind of faith before. Say you're going on a trip to Hawaii and you pray before the plane takes off, "Lord, would you please help us to land safely in Hawaii?" And of course you mean that prayer with all your heart, but when the Lord answers your prayer and you land safely, you forget all about it and you don't pause to thank Him for answering prayer. That's temporary or temporal faith. And then there's mere intellectual assent. That's kind of a fancy word, but it's basically faith based on knowledge. If I were to ask you, for example, who was the first president of the United States, you would likely say George Washington, and you would be correct because history tells us that he was the first president. And we know a lot about George Washington, but no one has a photograph of him. We have images of him and portraits of him. He's on some of our currency, but nobody is trusting George Washington for their salvation, nor should they. And so that's called mere intellectual assent or faith based on knowledge. And a lot of people have that kind of faith when it comes to Jesus. They know all about Jesus. They know who he is. They can tell you a lot about him. You know, he was a carpenter and he was, you know, his earthly mother was Mary, and, you know, they know all these different things, but they aren't trusting in Jesus as their Lord and Savior. So he says, by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. And a lot of people are trusting in themselves for salvation. They're trusting in their own works, their own goodness. The Bible makes it clear there's none good, no, not one. But it says it's the gift of God. And when you think about a gift, probably everybody watching this has received a gift before. You don't pay for a gift. If someone were to give you something and you said, you know, I know that this was kind of costly and I know you can't afford. Here, let me give you $1 for maybe something that's worth hundreds of dollars. The moment that you would exchange money for that, guess what? It ceases to be. It's no longer a gift. And so God offers the gift of salvation, which is very costly. And because no one could afford it, if God put a price tag on it, it is offered to us as a free gift. And then he says in verse 9, not of works, lest anyone should boast. The interesting thing about that is that even though it doesn't have anything to do with works, that is our salvation, people still boast anyways. And they'll try to say things like, you know, I'm better than this person, I'm better than that person, at least I'm not as bad as so-and-so. And so, you know, we have a tendency to boast or brag anyways. And he says that it has nothing to do with boasting or bragging, because it is by grace we're saved through faith. It is a gift of God. So once again, this is Pastor Dave. Thank you for visiting the Essential Truth. You have a blessed day.